Right. Right. So today I'm going to discuss about reviewing about the claim center in context to the organization structure. This is in continuation to the previous class that I have taken in context to the claim center point of view. So normally when there is any review process which we usually follow whenever we try to review the claim center process, especially when we are restructuring the organization. So the review will be performed by two basic roles, whatever that I am mentioning over here. These are all you can consider it and call it as roles. These are the two different roles you can see. The first is about the user role, and second is about the group role. Users, nothing but people who are performing whatever the claim adjudication, claim processing in backend. At the same time, groups, it can be managing groups, like claim managing groups, everything will come under this category. Now, when it comes to the review process of the claim center, especially when we are trying to understand this from the BA context, because the review is for something which being users and groups will be performed. But when we see from the business analyst point of view, if there are any clarifications which we wants to make, means any clarifications, whatever are required. If you want to make any clarifications from the configuration point of view, means, for example, if you want to provide any kind of permissions to be provided for the people, right? So for the accessibility point of view, configuration changes has to be made by the business analyst. Means I mean to say the requirement has to be provided by the BA. Based on the requirements which was provided by the business analyst, necessary changes will be made. In this regard, being a business analyst, we need to understand the review process from two different angles. One is about the user side, second is a group side. When it comes to the user side, especially business analyst ensure what are the requirements are we going to collect from the required stakeholders and all. To whom are we going to permit the login credentials? Normally, irrespective of the kind of roles what we see, we will be seeing a role called administrator also. You know that because in the application we have admin roles. Admin role, not by designation. I am saying role. Okay, administrator is a role. Now, when it comes to the admin roles have have the authorization to make any permission changes, etc. So there are some instructions which we have to be provided for the admin. This is from the context of admin, if you understand. So administrator has to provide necessary access to the people, whoever wants to access or log into the claim processing, because this access they may require for two different things. Because if you understand this from two different things, one is about for the claim submission part, and second, claim adjudication part. For two different things, we require login for the users I'm talking about. Okay, it is required for two different people. One is for claim submission, second is about the claim adjudication. For claim submission, to whom we have to provide the permission, so that list we have to make a note of it. So that list has to be identified, and admin has to provide the list for the particular people, especially for permission point of view. Next, we need to identify who are the people involving in the process of settling claims, because in the first point I stated and I have mentioned about user perspective, I have mentioned it. At the same time, I have even mentioned about the claim submission as well as claim adjudication. But settlement of claims will also be an important element. One has to be considered. So if you want to understand about settling of claims and all, who are all will be involved in settling of claims is something we have to see. This is where, if you see in the beginning of the claim center session, I told you there are three roles, right? So because claim submission people will be there, you know that, CSRs and all. Next, adjudicators, you know, right? So adjudicators are comes under this user category. The third is about supervisors. This settling claims, whatever are we people, right? So are they involving and all? This is something. The second point is something relating to the supervisors, because they are the one who will be settling the claims if there is any kind of, because there will be a limitation of claim settlements if you see from adjuster to supervisor, because administrator have a limitation of the claim settlement, because administrators doesn't have any adjudicators doesn't have doesn't have any allowance to process a number of claims, because there will be some amount of limit will be there. Within that limit only the adjudicators has to do. So after that, if more than the limit of that what was mentioned for the adjudicator, rest will be taken care of by the supervisor. So because whatever the required additional permissions for the claim submission, claim processing or settlement to be provided, that will be done by the supervisor itself. So that understanding and that requirement has to be identified by the BA. This is second point. Third, whatever the kind of assigning of work was mentioned or given to them, right? So being into business analysis, assigning roles is important, assigning jobs, right? So assigning job roles, right? So job roles are important, because whatever the role a particular person has played for this particular scenario may not be the same for all the time. Let's say, for example, if you have taken an adjudicator working for a long time for adjudication process, that job role may not be the same in all the occasions, because maybe in coming years these adjudicators may become supervisors as well, depends on the kind of seniority that those people have got. Okay, so this is also one of the core and important element one has to be known, right? So what are the different works that are being assigned to them, and how these work assignments were made, etc. So these are the major ones, because the remaining two are ignorable. But majorly, we need to understand these aspects from the BA point of view when you're trying to understand about the reviews for the claim center from the user perspective, as I mentioned you, either because that user can be an CSR people, or it can be adjudicator, or it can be supervisors and all. So that list we have to make up, you have to create, because we need to add the roles also, especially because sometimes in the applications we don't find all the roles, because we might require to add some job roles to the existing profile. Organization to organization, maybe job roles may get extended even. There may be some additional job roles will also be there, which has to be addressed properly, and that job roles has to be added to the existing ones. This is where being a business analyst, adding different job roles or the user list, apart from the one which was discussed so far. At the same time, whatever the requirements are we going to, what are the requirements are we gathering, okay, from the stakeholders and all for permitting them to log into the claim center is something which we have to do. That is point number one. Second category, from the group's point of view, because if you want to organize any employee insurances and all, if you want to manage groups, means let's say if there is an organization having a customer uh, is into IT services segment, for example, okay, IT services segment, they have some number of employees are working, so there is a customized insurance plan provided for the particular customer and as well as their employees. Depends on the bandwidth. Bandwidth means depends on the designation which they usually have. Okay, it depends on that. Whatever the services or whatever the services which are additional services or eligible for a particular bandwidth may vary, because it will not be the same for all the people. For example, if there are some roles which are in the senior management, whatever the benefits they get from the insurance, whatever the claims insurances we do, that may be different. So from company point of view, when there are any kind of group insurances was taken, right? I am not talking about health point of view. I am talking about any other life insurance, because even life insurance will be part of property and casualty, not from the context of healthcare. Do remember, because there is a confusion it may stated, right? So people may feel it's health insurance. It's not health. I'm talking about life insurance point of view. When we have taken life insurances point of view, whatever the group policies we have given for a particular customer, so there are some required some managing of these groups is essentially required, because depends on the customer database that we are going to manage, and how are we going to managing the groups in the claims is also one of the key and important factor. Being a business analyst, we need to focus more on. That is one thing. Second, at the same time, this may contain even people. I'm talking about users. That was already discussed in the previous this thing, right? So I already told you. Next, at the same time, they may have some child groups as well. Child groups means subgroups, I can say, right? So because there are some main groups we are created for the claim processing and all. For the claim processing, there may be some classification of subgroups which we have created. Those subgroups are something we call it as child groups. That was the difference. Okay, child groups is not something not for the child people, right? So children. That say child group means subgroups. Subgroups with the main groups what we have created. So that also will be included. So these subgroups may be varied from organization to organization. It may vary, because some organizations are so successful and prominent in providing maybe vehicle insurance, because all the organizations may not do an extensive business in all the insurances. For example, if there is an insurance company, assume that there are different lines of business they have, right? So LOBs, right? So because people will be in property insurance, people will be in vehicle insurance, people will be in the life insurance, right? So they'll be having a lot of insurances, but all the insurances may not be actively move, right? So because there are some insurance plans which will move very faster, means those are nothing but those are flagship products for that particular company. Flagship products means those products will move faster in the market based on the services that was given in that particular claim. At the same time, based on the services it was mentioned in that, right? So based on that, this is all something will be varied. So whatever we may have, right? So whatever the different child groups we have, that also will be included, right? So we may have some child groups. So these child groups we may be varied from organization to organization, as I mentioned. So it depends on the organization to organization. These child groups and all everything will be varied. Subgroups I'm talking about. It is not applicable for all. For example, when you have taken a vehicle insurances have multiple categories we have, right? So light vehicles, at the same time heavy vehicles. Heavy vehicles means all the commercial vehicles comes under heavy vehicle category. Light vehicle category, nothing but the personal vehicles which we carry, right? So all the cars, right? So personal purpose, whatever the cars we use, right? So these are all comes under the lightweight. Heavyweight means trucks, commercial trucks, which will be used for goods to be carried from one place to another place. Okay, these are all we call it as child groups or subgroups. Depends on the type of groups of the claims what they have, the policies what they have. Whatever the followed by this, whatever the claims are we going to manage for that. Generally, these groups and all everything will be varied. That is one more aspect. Being into business analyst, we need to know. Next, we need to understand about insurance organization structure, because this part, if you remember in the last session, last session, if you remember, right? So knowing about for the organization structure point of view that I have given, which is an optional one over here from the group's point of view, this point is optional. Next one is about we must be having a structure to match the business or managing clients, because business requirements that we have to be gathered. Because if you want to manage claims or if you want to perform claim processing, adjudication followed by the settlements, it's always important for us to understand what business they will be on. Business, I don't mean to say only property and casualty insurance. Okay, it doesn't mean it. So it can be, business can be any of anything, right? So it can be of any, what we call, this business can be, uh, uh, because they may be good at, maybe, vehicle insurances, right? So some, for example, their business, major business will be on the vehicle insurance. Some organizations may have majorly popular in property insurance, right? So some people may be majorly popular in cargo insurance or hull insurance, because I'm talking about marine, right? So even because marine insurance is also one of the major insurances we see. Okay, because in marine insurance, again, we have two classifications. In the last session also I told you. One is about cargo, second is for a hull insurance. Cargo insurance for the commodities, whatever they were transporting across across the sea, across the ocean, sorry, right, across the ocean, what they are traveling. This is all comes under. I'm talking about the sea base, right? So sea base. I'm talking about transportation of the goods. This is all comes under the cargo part, cargo insurances. Again, cargo insurances, whatever are we claiming, depends on the cost of commodity of the goods which they were traveling from one place to another place. At the same time, traveling time, what kind of goods are they traveling? Is it a perishable goods or non-perishable goods? That is will be taken into consideration. As far as I'm talking about the calculation of premium, that is not related here, but in addition to that, that marine insurance, I'm talking about this, right? So that is one thing. When it comes to the hull insurance, will be given for vessels. Vessel means that fleets, right? So whatever the vessels do we have, right? So engine, vessels, body for body of the ships which this cargo ships travels. Okay, all these things are comes under the hull insurance. We call it as hull, HULL, hull insurance. So classification of insurances, whatever we have, depends on the type of organizational structure they have, depends on the kind of policies which they were managing for a very long time. What are the different policies they are managing? So based on that, generally managing of these claims, everything will be useful here. So these are the aspects being into business analyst. Whenever we try to understand from the claim center point of view, from the user side as well as the group side, one should be understood. This is all something essentially required for us to gather the requirements to make some necessary changes which are to be made when we want to make some configuration into the existing application. This is something being into business analyst from the configuration point of view. When you are when you are configuring the claim center application in the organization, understanding about the organization structure is one of the core important aspect to be taken, because depends on the size of services they are providing to the customers, depends on the volume of business they were doing. Again, depends on uh, depends on the time, depends on the customer base, depends on the customer base which they were carrying for a very long time, depends on the organization structure, how this can be configured, especially from the user perspective as well as the group perspective, is something being into business analyst we need to do. This is about the organization structure, especially from the claim center point of view, which being a VA, we need to be known with. And tomorrow I'm going to discuss about this authentications and all. This is important because authentications and authorizations were also important, because for the claim center point of view, knowing about authentications and authorizations, that I'm going to discuss with you in tomorrow session. Is it clear to you, Woody?
Yes, it's clear. Yeah, thank you.
So this authentication authorization is important because this is about the technical aspects which we need to cover, right? So what are the technical aspects for a technical BA role? So by providing some oath permissions, right? So these are all required. This part I'm going to discuss in next session. I mean to say the session which we are going to discuss from Monday onwards. There.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Bye.
Bye.